So we are ready and rolling to get going with the Wicked Smart webinar. Welcome. If this is your first time here, I am Andy Bunce. I'm the marketing manager at Midwest Family. I am the facilitator for all of our, or most of our Wicked Smart webinars. We've been running these since about March of last year. Our goal is to bring experts and to help answer questions for you as the local medium-sized business owner. And we go from topics from marketing to some tactical type stuff to strategy to all over the board. We've even talked about employment law and downsizing and things that go along with that, or even selling your business from a legacy business on what best way to build a business to sell. So our main goal is to just be a resource for you and bring experts that are timely and relevant to you as a business owner. So a little bit of housekeeping. This is being recorded. We have all of our episodes of the Wicked Smart webinar on our YouTube page. So I ask you to like, comment, and share if you get value out of this, and subscribe to our YouTube page. And you just go on YouTube and type in the Wicked Smart webinar, you'll be able to find us. So you will get the slides that Pasquale is going to be sharing with you sometime midday tomorrow. So you'll be able to use that as a resource. And we'll have an opportunity to dive in here shortly. So today's topic, SEO in 2021, being able to really make sense of SEO. I talked to Pasquale probably about a month ago, and his ability to make SEO simple, because I don't like SEO as a tactic usually, because the people talking about SEO are very technical. And I call myself a marketing nerd. And a lot of SEO people take nerdiness to a whole new level. So, and I don't want that to be for you, because there is a lot of technical stuff with SEO. You can get lost in the weeds. But I wanted to bring Pasquale in and talk about just really common sense SEO stuff and helping make it relevant to you as a business owner. Is how does SEO actually grow my business? How do I link it to sales? How do I use it to get customers and things like that? So, and after talking to Pasquale, I had some light bulbs go off in my head on SEO, especially from stuff talking about how to build websites and things like that, or how to repurpose the content of the website and just be very strategic with that. So Pasquale, he has been doing digital marketing for 10 years. He's been certified by Digital Marketer. He's also a certified partner for Digital Marketer, as long with the same thing as us. He has all the certifications, so he can talk really holistically to the digital marketing. But today we're going to really focus on some of the search stuff. If you want to follow him on LinkedIn, I didn't get his permission, but I pulled his his LinkedIn there. So if you want to connect with him and have any specific questions for him, he's the CEO and president of QS Digital Solutions. Are you over in Jersey, Pasquale? Is that where you're at?
I am, North Jersey.
All right, coming to us from over on the East Coast there. So cool. Well, let me jump out here and allow you to share your screen so you can go ahead and get going.
Okay, well, welcome everybody. Thanks for having me, Andy. There were some kind words. By the way, Andy actually forced me to shave my head. I had a full head of hair before this. That was the deal. So I'm just letting you know, I had a full luxurious head of hair, and I just did this for you guys and shaved it literally this morning. No, but seriously, I'm going to share my screen here, and I'm going to jump into my presentation. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on myself, because I think Andy did a good job of explaining who I am. So I'm going to run through these slides. I do have quite a few slides. We may not get through all of them. And that's okay. If we don't get through all of them, I'm going to get to the ones that are important. So you'll see, I may not hold to the presentation itself based off of, what I think is important. I did get a little feedback that a lot of the folks here are regional. So they're from that Midwest area. And I'll try to be as relevant as I can when it comes to some of the SEO tactics and tools. Okay. So, what I'd like to touch on today, number one is getting into SEO and kind of where does that live in your potential customer's journey, whether that's B2B or B2C. you're going to see soon enough that that's irrelevant. But it's really knowing where does that fit in the journey. And some people spend a lot of money on SEO initially, or even a lot of money could be $250 a month or $2,500 or $25,000, depends on the scale of the company. But it's really how am I measuring that, and where does it fit with the rest of the tools and tactics and core disciplines. So we're going to talk about that and where that fits, and kind of why sometimes things become half built. I call it a half built bridge. And we'll get a little more detail into that as well. And then finally, how do we tie SEOs to sales? I'm going to get into a little bit about that if we have time, and we'll open up for Q&A after. Okay. So again, background of me, Andy said that. What I do want to earmark is this is what's pretty important about making sure that when if you do work with an agency or in general, you want to make sure that you're at least aware of most of the core disciplines. And the reason that is because usually one discipline helps facilitate another. For example, content marketing or email marketing is writing content, right? But really content and copywriting have a lot to do with SEO. And again, you'll see that they fit in certain stages that a customer goes through when they reach your content, and as they move through that journey, there has to be other things that work with SEO to pull them through towards actually buying your core and flagship product. So what I mean by that right here is this right here. Everybody can see my screen, right? Just making sure.
You can't see your screen yet, so
oh, you can. All right, so hold on 1 second.
Slides again.
Just make sure. 1 second, guys. I'm glad I asked, and it would have been great to go through the whole thing and not have that there. Let me just make sure I share it again. Thought I did. All right, there we go. So now you should be able to see my screen.
Yep, you're good.
Okay. So again, what I was just talking about there is the core disciplines, right? So when you're thinking about your process here, we're going to start talking about where does SEO live. So you've got awareness, engagement, lead generation, conversion, your aha moment, and your ascension, which is your core product, reviews, and generating referrals. They all touch each other, right? So SEO fits in the upper quadrant of this, and we're going to get into that in a little bit more detail. If you want to use this as an exercise, you don't have to measure on a scale of 1 to 5, but you just want to kind of put a dot on how good you are at certain things. Sometimes SEO isn't the answer. Sometimes it's something else that's hurting in your business. But usually if you're having a conversion or an engagement problem, it could be the way that you're writing your SEO or the lack of people engaging once they find something that you've search engine optimized. So let me just back up here 1 sec. I want to present this as the presenter notes. So what I'd like everybody to keep in mind as we go through this exercise is it's not just about going in and doing title tags with your SEO. It's a lot bigger than that. Okay, it's about understanding SEO touches a couple different areas here. Number one, documentation. So if you're going to optimize something, make sure it's documented. Okay, it's as simple as having a spreadsheet of some type that tracks your keyword research. Something like this, maybe. Right. So this is just a spreadsheet, and it shows URL, primary keyword, volume, and maybe some secondary keywords. And how do I find all this stuff? Right. Oh my God. It's not really that difficult. You could use something like SEMrush. There's very small packages and larger packages, and SEMrush just pulls information and gathers it for you and tells you how well your website's doing, right? So here's an example of a current client, right? And you can see here they have quite a few people coming to the site per month, right? And if we check on the overview here, you'll see it's close to 13 to 14,000 people. And again, this gives you a little bit of an idea of what's happening. So this is a combination of analyzing your journey, but at the same time, also it's dealing with metrics, right? So metrics is what am I supposed to be measuring with SEO? Okay, so we're going to talk a little bit about that and how that works, but that really runs into Google Analytics and creating your conversion events. What doesn't get measured doesn't really get optimized. So we want to make sure we're focusing on that. And then the final piece, which actually is SEO, it's a tactic, right? So everybody that I see always wants to talk about tools and tactics, But the reality is when you're trying to just do, let's say, you document your journey and you just track your metrics, and you don't have a tool and a tactic, that could be pay-per-click, SEO, really anything, social, paid social, and you're not tracking it, you kind of get stuck. As opposed to a documented journey and tools and tactics and not actual metrics, then you're just a bull in a china closet. So you're breaking a lot of things, and you're not paying attention to what's going on with your business, and you can burn a lot of cash like that, right? And then the final piece, if you're going to be kind of Milli Vanilli style here, if you've got your actual metrics and your tools and tactics, you can say, we had a great month. What happened? What did we do? And that's not a fun feeling either. The growth triad is really there. It's the predictable growth. So documented journey, very quickly, I'm going to go through this. You want to have a process here, right? So you want to know kind of where you're going with the SEO. So, we have our awareness phase, engagement, subscription, convert, excite, into your core product, which is ascend, advocate, and promote, right? And the idea, with whatever size company you have, this could be huge marketing departments and sales departments, or just a one-man show or one-woman show. You want to make sure that you have a process so you know where to place your SEO efforts, your pay-per-click, your website, and your products, right? There's a little bigger view of what this looks like, okay? And as we go through this, I'm going to give you practical examples of what this is. So the reason we're doing this exercise is I want to really drive home, to make sure that you understand that that sequence matters, right? So you have to make sure you say, okay, well, where exactly does SEO fit in this process? And we're going to get into that in a little bit. In general, though, your tools and tactics, your paid search, that kind of stuff is going to be in the awareness phase. But tracking what happens after that, how to convert that SEO effort to someplace else is going to be super, super important. Okay. So again, actual metrics. This is an example, a simple Excel spreadsheet with, some key performance indicators that mean something to you. In most cases for SEO, you want to be tracking your unique visitors and the organic type of traffic that's coming to the site. And then from there, it really turns into something else. It turns into engagement and how and where people go on your site. There's a lot of ways to track this. You could use heat maps like Crazy Egg or Mouseflow. But in general, Google Analytics does a great job with this, but you want to have some type of spreadsheet. Also, Google Data Studio is a really cool metric that can help pull in organic traffic from analytics, a little easier to read. Okay, tools and tactics. You should have a tool and a tactic for each section of a customer value journey. So we're going to spend a lot of time over there today talking about it, the SEO side, and it's important to know that bottom corner is where SEO lives, right? So if you spend too much time focused on SEO, this is what gets dangerous, whether you're doing it yourself or you're using a freelancer or an agency. If it's an SEO driven agency, and I can't make this more clear, what tends to happen if they just do SEO and they're not fully qualified, or you don't yourself do enough research on some of the other things that are going on in your marketing world, you end up turning into this, right? Hammer sees a nail. So it's SEO, and Andy kind of alluded to, a lot of these guys get very, canonical, technical SEO, and they're doing site scrapes and getting into really detailed type of schema markup. And when the reality is maybe you're bottlenecking somewhere else, and your SEO is doing just fine when it comes to awareness and people finding it. So again, you want to make sure that it's not the answer. It's not the only answer. It's a part of what your digital marketing effort should look like. Okay, so let's jump into this. So, how does SEO work within the awareness phase? And we're going to kind of run through this. We break SEO into a few different sections. The learning phase, improving, building, promoting, and evaluating. Okay. Learning is really doing your research, right? So for example, if I jumped over here and I saw that this client of ours has a lot of keywords coming to the site, well, what I'll start looking at right here, just give it a second to come up, is I can do some competitive research, right? I can start looking at kind of who else is ranking, what kind of keywords are ranking, right? And that's kind of what you want to do first. Most business owners don't spend enough time, and it doesn't have to be the brick and mortar location next to you or regionally. You want to think of it like this. Okay, who basically has the most traffic in the country, right, with that primary keyword? And then you're just going to tag on the address and your city and your state behind that keyword. Hope that makes sense. I'm going to repeat that. So, if I know there's 13,000 people coming to the site, I want to see what words they're ranking for. And again, you could see with SEMrush how to sing higher. So this is obviously a singing coach and a songwriting coach. And you could see, what she's ranking for word wise. But as I scroll down here, you can also see Ramsey Voice. Everybody knows who that is. Basically 15,000 people per month. 62,000 traffic. So the idea is we can dig in deeper with any website nowadays, guys. And I can click right here, and that's going to bring up this page, right? And now I can see what keywords are ranking for. So a simple exercise, and you can get a 7 to 10 day free trial from SEMrush, Ahrefs, Uber Suggest, right? There's a lot of them out there that can get in and show you this. And you can see you've got your words, throat chakra, how to sing, right? And it shows she's ranking number 25. That means for every 10, right? For every 10, and every 10 ranking, sometimes 8, depending, is a page. So if you're 25, technically you're on the 3rd page of Google, 5 down. When's the last time anybody went on the 5th page of Google? Probably not anytime soon, right? So, you want to make sure you look for this. But what you can do with your own site, even if it's not a lot of traffic, you can use someone else's site to see what keywords are ranking for a specific page, right? And again, you want to go by volume and then ranking. And this is how you find low-lying fruit as you roll through this. Okay.
Well, so I see Benjamin, we have a plumber. Dale Benjamin owns Benjamin Plumbing. So if you were talking to Benjamin Plumbing, the first step would be to find maybe a national competitor and put their information into a tool like this,
Sure.
and analyze what they're doing, and then just kind of emulate it for their local market.
You would. It's as simple as going into Google. So think of it like this. It's all about reverse engineering with SEO, right? So Google doesn't really, they like SEO, and it's like a love-hate marriage here, because how does Google make money, right, Andy? They're going to make money off of search, right? So if I'm a plumber, right, and I'm local, then there's a lot of different ways I can step in front of traffic here, right? So you want to start with this, and you can see ads that pop up. Well, you could actually, with SEMrush, you can see what kind of ad this is, right? And kind of emulate it or make it better, maybe, right? And then you've got Google Maps, which I'm going to get into in a second with Google Local, okay? Because we don't have a whole lot of time here, so I want to make sure I'm getting through this. But again, you can see what you'll be able to do, and then here would be your Yelps, right? Your aggregators, and then Roto-Rooter. So what I would do is I would go into Roto-Rooter and see the way that they optimize their site. That brings you back to over here, and then you look at the keywords that Roto-Rooter is ranking for, right? Doesn't matter if it's national or not. You want to see who's got the most keywords, and then you can tag again your city on it. Make sense?
Yeah, I got you. Just wanted to kind of give you an example here from somebody.
So that's kind of how you move through. This is our system, okay? Again, you don't have to follow this to a key, but a lot of it is discovery first and understanding your industry landscape. Another example with a technical audit. Nowadays, you've got Screaming Tree, Sitebulb. All right, if you've got a little bit of extra cash and you want to do some research, Sitebulb isn't terribly expensive, but it's a website scraper, and it'll give you practical visual imaging of what's wrong with your site, how your SEO is doing, and even to the point where it can tell you why and how to do it yourself, right? Some of it's pretty technical, but some of it may not be. And then you get into planning, strategy, and growth. One thing you want to think about with SEO is really, and a lot of clients miss this, is they miss the ability to identify certain keywords that are high in the funnel, right? So if someone, say plumbing, right? If someone's looking for a plumber, they're probably down here at consider, right? They're aware of their options and they're looking for a plumber. If there's a bat in my attic, I know what I need. I don't need to do a lot of research. But now if I want to know whether it makes sense to put a certain type of plumbing in, you know, or shower or this or that into my bathroom. Now we're thinking about, why would I use a plumber? So if a plumber's smart, they'd have a blog talking about, you know, when does it make sense to convert from galvanized piping to PVC? Or what size do I need if I have a family of 5 for water? You know, what type of water heater? So you want to think of those high level questions when they're just not ready to make a decision yet. And an exercise like this will help you with that. Make sense? So this brings me to my next point. It's all about your organization of your content. Okay. So, you know, what I call this is topical clusters. And what we do here is we structure this in a way, okay, to make sure it's easy for the consumer to absorb information on your site. So like if we, and I can revert back to plumbing if I wanted to each time, but really it could be any industry. If you're going to talk about plumbing in general, you could break it into areas. If it's your business, you know, if you've been doing it for any period of time, what the hot topics are in your business, and you want to make sure they're all connected. So what does that look like? You take the center. So it might be, I'm going to show you examples of topics in a second, but the main topic, and you veer it out. So plumbing could be leaks. It could be, you know, types that you can get into the bathroom area. It could be with water heating, you know, and you start breaking it out, and you make sure that all of your blogs and information are connected, but also point back to your services, right? So blogs are going to be that kind of high level that we were just talking about here, right? You know, blogs live up here in the attention phase and awareness phase, and then the consideration and service is going to be down here. So you might have a Google ad or SEO, right, up in attention. So top ideas for bathrooms, top toilets, top this, you know, whatever it might be. And then they click on it, they're aware of you, and they get down to discover it. And now they look at you, read your blog, and now there's an ad or I'll call it action to make them pull the trigger. Then they become a customer. Make sense? So another example of the pillar cluster is here. I'm going to get through some practical examples here a little quicker. So you guys will have this. So for example, if you're a vet, you know, a local guide, right? So a little thing about local guides. Remember, Google just wants to make sure you're relevant. And a lot of the times, and nothing against pizza, I love it, but you know, depending on who you are, you don't want to be a pizza shop on each corner, right? You want to be relevant no matter where you are in Google, in that city or that region. And the way you do that is you kind of become the resource for that city. And it's as simple as even putting, you know, information or being a local guide to your city and talking about certain things. And you don't even have to have a navigation bar on your website. It's just good content about the city. And when Google sees that and it attaches it to your company, they find you as relevant, right? And then you can see how you just break it out into the areas: pet health, pet training, pet services, and pet medications, right? Doesn't mean you have to sell the medications, but what you're doing is becoming a resource. You can point people in the right direction, right? And that's what SEO is about, is becoming the most, you know, the most informed, worthy site, the epic blogs, the epic information that's just going to outperform everyone else. Long form blogs that you write, some people go back and forth with that. Nobody's going to read them. Of course, no one's going to read the definitive guide to plumbing, right? But there is one person that's going to read it. And who do you think that is? That's Google, right? So the Google bot loves long form blogs. And the suggestion is you can keep adding to that blog and refreshing it. And that's going to help you with SEO. So keep that in mind. So this is my agency example. Pretty simple example. I'm going to pull it up. Right, and you can see how I tied together a lot of the nerdy stuff that Andy so eloquently alluded to, and also some of the off-page SEO and link building. Right, so you can see it all ties together. So when Google reads the site, it understands almost like a book. Because remember, Google's blind, right? And the best example I can give you with SEO with Google, okay? And I don't know the whole age group of everybody here, but if you ever seen the movie, and Andy, I think I gave you this example when we talked. If you've ever seen the movie Rain Man, right, with Dustin Hoffman and Tom Cruise, you know, Dustin Hoffman is a savant, right? Google's like that, very, very literal, but they're blind and they're just feeling around to see what's going on your site. So the more that you have and the more organized and relevant it is, the better chance you are of being ranked, whether it's local, really regional, or national. National is a different story, but for the local regional is very, very relevant. The cool thing is all the stuff on especially if you're local, all the stuff that you have on your website, you should also have on your Google My Business. And we're going to get into that in a second here. I just wanted to give an example of a coffee vendor too, because it's kind of cool the way you can structure this just to help you think out of the box here. So, with a coffee vendor, and I have a company that's part coffee vendor, you see how open it got here to talking about events in the area, coverage of an event, local partnerships, things to do in the area. It has nothing to do with coffee. You're just trying to be a resource locally to people. And again, Google sees that. And you can easily link that information at the end back to a service or anything else, right? So again, remember, it's not always about the brewing. It can be also about other stuff as well. Okay, for just sake of time, I'm going to kind of run through this. These are other examples for like a shoelace store. And I have another one with cannabis and how we put it together here. So you get the point though. So I don't want to beat a dead horse on this, but this was the important part I wanted to show you. What's the best tactic for me? Really depends on your business, right? Sorry guys, going the wrong direction there. Google Local, I'm going to give you some important information right now. All right, you see these little round circles, okay? Every square radius of about a mile, Google has a specific type of algorithm that kind of pulls information. And if you see these numbers here, right? And I can send you guys this information, Andy. This is a company called Local Viking, and it's a software that shows you being in the 3-pack. So what is the 3-pack? When you're local, the 3-pack is this bad boy right here, right? So this is where my plumber wants to live, right? You could also have ads in here called Google Local Extensions, but that's pay-per-click, right? But here's free SEO for Google My Business. So if you don't have a Google My Business account when you're local, that is your #1 offense for SEO, or really for anything, any type of marketing. You want to make sure you're right here, right? So very important. But as you can see, Google, you could be over here or over to the left and it not come up, just by being a few miles to the left or the right. Right? So over here where you see number 8, this person ranks number 8 over here, and right where they're at, and this could be literally 0.25 miles per circle, right? And it's interesting because over here it's 14. So the way that you are relevant is you can talk about things in that area, right? And Google starts realizing that you're relevant over there as well. And you can also tie maps back to your place for Google My Local. Again, there's a couple tricks in order to embed a map, but embedding maps into your site is a way that you can show Google that you're relevant in different parts of a city or a region. Make sense? So these are just the most effective ways that you could use this. But remember, keep in mind, anything you do on your site, you should repost on Google. There's the ability to make posts, videos, 360-degree walkthroughs. I mean, you can have events, you can have specific sub-services, because Google My Business, technically, they tell you what categories you can choose. So if you're like, hey, you know what, well, I'm this category. Well, Google's like, I don't care. This is the category you're in. So how do you fight that? They actually set up an area where you can have sub-services within your business. So if you're a salon, or if you do specific specialties within the plumbing world or any world, you can get in there and put in that, and also any other type of specials you have. We made a simple change and put a special wing night and all-you-can-eat shrimp night on a restaurant, and right in Google My Business. And as soon as someone Googles it and they find the location, say they click on this, what tends to happen is this pops up and they show the actual person. It's going to pop up here, and then the actual ad will pop up right on GMB. Right, so it's a pretty interesting. My computer's going a little slow here, but the Google My Business will pull in those specials and those offers that you have. So you can control it by time, or you can keep it on there anytime you want to. But you can see Margot Plumbing. So if Margot Plumbing here actually had a special 25% off, the stuff that they're sticking probably in the value pack anyway, right? You could stick it right in here and it's going to pop up, and it might be that way that someone pulls the trigger. Okay. So again, go ahead, Andy.
They say if anyone has any questions, go ahead and put them in the chat box, and we can kind of field them as we go too. So if there's one one topic or one thing you have a question about, add it in the chat box and I'll ask this week.
And I'm trying to pack as much as I can in here, guys. So I'm going to go a little quick here, but again, you'll have the slides to read. They're pretty easy. The more that you get broader into a regional situation, the more your content is going to be so important, because the more quality content you have, the more Google is going to make you relevant in the region. So again, I would go do the research, find the top 3 people who rank in your area for that primary keyword. And now I wouldn't match it. I would 10 times the amount of content. Okay. Oh, my industry is boring. I don't care. It's not about the person reading it. Remember that. It's about Google. So you want to add as much content as you can and just really completely obliterate any other content that's out there. That's how you're going to win regionally. I can tell you right now. If you're hyper local, it's a little bit of a different story. You might have to get away. You might get away with that a little bit. Same thing with national, except that's going to be, you better have some money. So when you're dealing with national stuff and you're thinking about doing that one day, that's like getting in a ring with a silverback gorilla. So you better be one yourself or you're going to get your butt kicked. So you need a lot of money, a lot of spend just in branding alone. But the foundational piece is that, epic pillar content type of information. So another piece I want to get into here is, how do we link this to sales, right? It's pretty important. So if you remember, how do we do that? And when I showed you this before, where did SEO live, if you remember? Lived in the awareness phase, right here. So how do we get people to engage, stay engaged, and maybe capture some information before we convert, right? And that's a very interesting concept here. So, whether it's B2B or B2C, what I tell people is it's still human to human, right? So you're dealing with human beings. So people are like, oh, I can't find that person on Facebook. Well, you might not be able to find them on Facebook because you have a service that's B2B, and LinkedIn might be the right play. It might be a LinkedIn tactical plan, which also you can SEO optimize LinkedIn, right? Interesting part about LinkedIn as a side bit, LinkedIn allows you a little different type of algorithm. The more that your information is read and shared, the longer it stays actually relevant and on the top of the news feed. And that's kind of where Instagram's starting to go now, if you haven't noticed that either. But it's human to human. So you could pull someone off LinkedIn, off a pay-per-click, right, or SEO. They could get to your site, get to a certain page, you capture their cookies, which is basically the IP address that got there, and you could retarget them on Facebook. Right. So that's a secondary retargeting way to reach them. That's a little past SEO, but you can see how SEO communicates with your pixels and retargeting. Right. So again, you can have an organic lead come in, get to your site, and then capture them and retarget them on Google Ads or Facebook. Right. Just to help guide them. So if you're a plumber and they get to your site, your homepage, and then they get to the HVAC section, right, don't retarget them with plumbing in general. How about some reviews for the HVAC clients that you've had, and maybe a blog you retarget them with how to know when to replace it or whatever it might be, right? So you want to retarget with relevant stuff, right? So sequence matters. So, if you look at this, I'm going to go out on a limb and I'm going to say that they didn't meet yesterday or the week before or probably within a month or two, right? So sequence is very important. So you want to make sure when you're doing SEO that you have a level of sequence and a level of information that's top of the funnel, right? So it's interesting. I'm going to blow through this really quickly, but I'm going to keep this PG. But overall, Desmond Morris is a doctor who spent about 20 years of his life, maybe more than that, studying intimate behavior. And there's a process to this, right? So again, when you first meet somebody, that's eye to body, right? So maybe you walk by someone and go, hey, wow, cool, whatever that might be, right? Could be guy, could be girl. But the idea behind this, and again, this is important with content and SEO, right? I'm going to compare this back to SEO and content over and over again, and what some businesses do, which is why they don't get the leads from SEO or any of their awareness efforts, right? So eye to body, that could be just an ad that's sitting out there somewhere, right? Then you get eye to eye, right? So you get a little closer. Maybe they see your ad and they're like, oh, what is this? Something sparked them. Maybe it was the video, shiny object, whatever they saw, right? If they're searching for something, maybe it was a percentage off. They're like, let me get into this a little further. Now maybe they click and they get to the point where they're engaging, right? Not that you're talking to them, but in the intimacy world, it's voice to voice, right? So in the business world, we're talking about engaging with the content like your blog, right? Then it's hand to hand, maybe a handshake, right? So now they're getting in, they're reading, they're finished reading your blog. And what do? A lot of the times what people do is they move a little too quick and try to sell something to someone, right? But the next step of intimacy is arm to shoulder. So maybe it's a touch of the hand, touch of the shoulder, right? Then it's a hug, right? Now, you ever see those people out there that come in and they say, hey, they shake your hand and give you a hug, right? Or they come in and they say, hey, what's going on? And I guess if you're in Italy, right? Or some of my friends that are off the boat Italian, boom, they come in, bang, bang, kiss on the both cheek, both sides, not on the lips, right? But if you find what he found here is when you skip over 2 or 3 steps in intimacy, right? It's a problem, right? So if someone comes up to you and says, hey, what's up? Shakes your hand, gives you a nice fat kiss, a nice wet kiss. It's assault. It's not cool. So you can't really do that kind of stuff, right? So the problem is that happens in business all the time. And that's like going from the awareness phase and then trying to shove a product down someone's throat, which is just like giving them a handshake and trying to kiss them on the convert stage, which was higher up, right? So as the time goes on, you go hand to head, and then we go a little more intimate, mouth to body, and then chicka chicka bow wow, right? All right. So again, this is the process, and that would be your core, right? But again, when you skip over more than 2 or 3 of these, you lose people. And that's the same thing as you get those ads on Facebook that are just running around, right? And then follow you around, but they're not very relevant and annoying. And that's someone that is shaking your hand and trying to kiss you. Now, if they sent something that was more cool, it would be different. So this is, the question is, okay, well, Pat, that's great and all. How do I connect my SEO to the other stages? How do I do this? And I get a little joke with if you're a Marvel fan, right? How do we stay connected, right? And the way that we do that is we make sure that you map out your customer value journey, right? So again, you can see you kind of recognize what this is from the first slide that I showed you, and start listing out currently what you think you're doing on awareness. And it's for SEO. Is it on page? Is it off page? Is it backlinks? Is it guest posts? What are you doing? And if you see all these words, social media, Facebook, Instagram, SEO would be here, right? Now watch, what I will do next is we break out one of these little boxes right here, right? So if organic social media would be one box. SEO would be here. It would be SEO on page. It would be optimizing maybe your blogs, right? So they can be found online, right? It could be doing backlinks, directory submissions. And the key thing, and I had to block out some of the writing here, is you want to map out what do you want that person to do once they get on that page. SEO is not going to close you anything. I'll repeat that. You're not closing jack with SEO. SEO is just the, hey, how you doing? Maybe shake your hand, right? Something like that. But even the handshake is the conversion level, right? So if we go back here, subscription, this is the handshake over here. So how do I get SEO blended in? And it's making sure that you always have subscription-based calls to action, right? And again, for a plumber, it might be, sign up here for, any discounts that we have, or it could be if you had a good enough guide for plumbing, or maybe it's a calculator to calculate how much it costs or whatever, and they have to give their email address, that's subscription. As you move into convert, then you're away from SEO, and that's going to be more on the side of conversion. Is kind of like people are going to either give their time or their money. So in my eyes, if someone converts, they're giving their time or their money, kind of like you're giving right now in a webinar. It's almost a conversion because you're getting the time and money. But again, SEO is over here, not going to help you with that. So make sure you get the marketing automation to bring this through, at least capture an email address. That way you can organically move to the next level. So what I tell people is never do SEO without that page having some 2 or 3 types of subscribed calls to action and a couple different converts, right? Don't get me wrong. People can blow through the intimacy, right? It's called a one-night stand, right? People can go through that very quickly, but they go through the stages fast. So you want to offer those to your people, and SEO is going to give you that awareness and maybe move into engagement. But after that, make sure they're all flowing through. You can get a little deeper after this and kind of really build out what happens when someone gets on your blog. But the idea is taking your time and this is all documentation, guys. I know it's not fun, kind of sucks, but you got to work out and write out what you're going to do and how your SEO is going to work before you start actually doing it, right? So what I don't want to see with anybody here is don't start this. So you're here, there's the money, there's the sale, right? This is what I see people do. Oh, let me get an Instagram page. Let me optimize my title tags on my SEO. Let me just write one blog, right? And you got all these half-built bridges. And last time I checked, unless you got a hell of a jump, you're not going to make it over there. And again, you're not the one jumping, are you? Sometimes it's the customer, and they're sure as hell not going to jump. They're going to leave your site. So you want to give them that UX design and that process to go all the way over the bridge. The wider you make the bridge, the stronger you make the bridge, which means the more content you put into it, the more backlinks, the more internal links, the more better UX design, the more you're going to start creating that bridge all the way over. So again, SEO is great. SEO is probably right here, guys, but make sure what happens next, and get it all the way over, okay? And that's kind of that process. I know you love my writing and my corny drawings. So 73 is the amount of tools and tactics that we count that are out there that we do at QS Digital. But overall, again, you don't want to focus on just one tool and one tactic. So thank you very much. And I don't know if there's any questions out there, but I think I kind of was almost on time. Andy?
All right, so if you want to stop sharing, Pasquale, that'd be great. Yeah, so if you have questions, you probably have time for one, maybe two questions. So go ahead and enter that in the chat box, or if you want to raise your hand, we can also enable your microphone. So I do have a question while we're waiting for people to chime in, though. So when you're looking at SEO, it's kind of a behemoth, right? So it sounded like that you recommend the basics is Google My Business. Go to your Google My Business, get pictures up there, put posts up there, get content, do as much as you possibly can in that arena. Is that right?
Yeah. If I had to pick two areas, that would be, Google My Business isn't too difficult to build out normally, but where they blend together with probably the most important thing is content. And your content can't be all over the place. So that pillar cluster structure that I showed, Andy, that right there is huge. Find a pillar topic and then start writing out triggers and different things that you think your target audience would be interested in. That on your site, but you can also what? You could take every single piece of content that you just put on your site and put it where? Google My Business, and then link it. Then now Google owns Google My Business. Now think how connected your website is to an off-page SEO platform that Google owns.
Yeah, I think that after our conversation, one of the pieces that I was most excited about is being able to just get out of the technical, get out of the weeds, and just think like, what questions are people asking where? Like when they're ready to buy, what questions are they asking? Yep. When they're researching, what questions are they asking?
Sure.
When they're not sure what the problem is, or they're in, they're probably 6 months from now, what questions are they asking? And I think that has nothing to do with SEO, but it has everything to do with SEO. So it's just, but that should be the foundation of your marketing strategy is questions. What questions are people asking? Where in their buyer journey? And if you want to start closest to the lowest hanging fruit, you start at the bottom, right?
Yep, you start at the bottom, and you honestly, guys, just reverse engineer Google. You start asking, if you ever notice, you start typing questions into Google, right? And all of a sudden it starts suggesting what this. Well, those suggestive questions are the most asked questions in the industry right now in most cases. Whenever you Google a question or this or that, and you remember you scroll to the bottom, you'll see like 4 or 5 questions, right? I suggest take your primary keyword, put that in there, whatever those FAQs, and that's what they are, frequently asked questions, take them, put them onto the bottom of your website in an accordion style, and just answer them in your words. That's a very free piece of advice because Google's saying, yo, that's what people are asking. So, if you kind of follow them and reverse engineer it, you're going to be okay. Unless you're talking about some serious competitive stuff, then we got to start taking some more intense tactics. But yeah.
Awesome. Well, you crammed a lot into this half hour. So
probably too much.
It's a little bit of a fire hose situation, but that's kind of the point here. We want to kind of give you an overview, give you little bits. I'm sure everyone got a little bit different out of here. So connect with Pasquale on LinkedIn if you have specific questions for him. We have about a minute left. So up next, 2 weeks from now, I won't be here, but Teresa Tim will be facilitating that discussion. She's going to be talking about recruiting. being able to connect your marketing strategy with your recruitment, get talent, kind of the future of talent. She was a keynote speaker at one of the top recruiting conferences in the United States. I reached out to her. She's going to come in and talk with us. She's worked with Coca-Cola. She's worked with BMO Harris Bank. She's worked with Royal Caribbean Cruise, and she served and led those recruiting teams. And now she owns her own company. So I'm really excited about her coming on, and I've seen her slides. So the content that she's going to be talking about, if you're looking at getting people, keeping people, and recruiting in 2021, then do not miss this webinar. So thank you, everybody. Thank you, Pasquale, for joining us today. I got a lot of value out of it. I hope everyone else did too. See you guys in 2 weeks. So thanks again.